This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Kevin Brockway is ready to go. Gainesville Sun. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Brockway G1. Catch his work there at the Gainesville Sun. Kevin, how are you doing, my friend? Sorry about sending you the wrong link. But
no worries. No, I was running a little late too.
Well, you're welcome to come back at 6:45 for the pregame show if you want.
Oh, yeah. Because, they're in the air, they're on the ground, they're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking what?
Stunkenbow. That's what
it is. The shirts look nice out there, Big O. That looks good.
Thank you. Yeah. We got some championship gear out here. We're at Caneswear having some fun, getting ready. Obviously, Caneswear. So, folks are out here getting pumped up for the game. So talk to me, bro. The Gators have not looked good here. And Lagway, 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's like Santa Claus right now. And Oprah. You get one, and you get one, and you get one. What's going on?
Yeah, it has not gone according to plan here. I think there were a lot of expectations based on the 4-game winning streak coming into this season. But I think there were some red flags, particularly with DJ Lagway not having the time in the spring, throwing the football, and in the fall. I mean, there have been all kinds of issues with regards to, him being able to kind of stay on the field during the offseason. First it was kind of the shoulder and the core issues, and they didn't have him throw the entire spring. Then he threw a little in OTAs, but the start of fall camp, he had a calf issue that held him out the first 3 weeks of fall camp. So he's really only had 1 week to ramp up, playing 11 on 11 going into the season. And it's really showing just in not being in sync with the receivers. You kind of thought that maybe he would have spent the extra time in the film room in terms of reading defenses, but what's really been his kryptonite this season is kind of reading the zone defenses. They're giving him more high safety looks. He's really struggling and having, problems in that regard, making the right throws, making the right reads. And here you are, you're Florida, you're sitting at 1-2. Defense has played fairly well, but offensively, only 2 touchdowns the last 2 games. And, I personally think, Billy Napier shares some of the brunt of the responsibility too. Look, he's held on to the play calling for this long. There were some red flags when they only scored 6 points in the first half against Tulane, but they got away with that because they were playing a backup quarterback. He could have hired another offensive coordinator, a quarterback developer from the outside to kind of help DJ out. He did not do that. So this is kind of his mess to fix right now.
Wow. All right. So you look at what that offense looks like right now, and Miami can actually play some defense, which is something they couldn't do at all last year at all. They couldn't play any defense. So what are you seeing in that matchup right now? Because from what I've seen from Lagway, and you've explained it, why he looks so uncomfortable and so off, because he really doesn't look like the guy you saw last year. That was quite a tease.
Oh, yeah, no question. And I think Miami will, just basically follow the book on DJ, which is, obviously, play a lot of zone coverages, play a lot of high safety. Miami's been pretty good against the run all season, right? They lead the nation in that. And Florida's got a pretty good running back in Jaden Baugh that you wonder, should he get more touches? And he kind of splits carries right now with Jacoby Jackson, a senior, but I think you're going to see Baugh continue to get the ball more as the season progresses. And they also used him effectively in the screen game, in that LSU game, to kind of abate the pass rush a little bit. He had 7 catches for 59 yards. I mean, their lone touchdown drive, he had a 25-yard kind of catch and run on the screen. So I think that's one of the effective plays that under Billy Napier that Florida used in that game. But there were, just too many. If you look at DJ's interceptions, most of them were on long down situations, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. So I think, coaches say this a lot, right? Staying on schedule, but it's going to be tough to stay on schedule when you're facing a run defense the way Miami's playing, in this season. I mean, to me, it was a mystery that Notre Dame didn't try Jeremiah Love more, but maybe they just saw something in Miami's front seven where they realized it was going to be a hard time for them to run against them too.
No, and Brown also struggled from USF too, and he's a beast. And so the change they made on defense really paid off, because the Canes are playing defense, and that Notre Dame test, not only were they able to control Love, and company, but the physicality of it. And that's something that we had not seen here in a long, long time. So, yeah, I think Florida's going to have some trouble running the ball against Miami right now.
Yeah. And I think it's going to, come down to Florida's, obviously the defense. Again, you're going to be probably leaning pretty heavily on the defense and hope, fingers crossed. Because, the last time they faced Carson Beck in the Georgia, Florida game in, last November, they did have 3 interceptions against him. So maybe you hope that you can get some takeaways, steal some possessions and stay in the game that way. But it's going to be a tough struggle for, I think, Florida to move the ball again against this Miami defense. And certainly LSU, they made some transfer portal additions. Another interesting storyline, with the 5 interceptions was LSU's, secondary coach, Corey Raymond, was a coach that Florida Billy Napier fired in 2023, right? And now you're going against Miami, and you're facing Will Harris, who was Florida's secondary coach in 2024, who left the program as well. So I'm sure he knows some tendencies and he knows some things. So that's an interesting, little interesting nugget to this matchup as well.
Listen, you look at that LSU game, and Florida's defense played awesome because they kept them in that game with 4 billion turnovers. Lagway had like 5 interceptions in that game, or 4 interceptions, or whatever it was, and to lose to just by 11 points, 20-9 or something.
20-10, yeah,
20-10, yeah, 10 points. That's ridiculous. You should have lost by like 35 points in that game, and you lost by 10. So what's the challenge for Miami? Because Mark Fletcher and the boys can run the ball. Obviously, they've got a physical offensive line. And one of the things that, Sean and I were talking about before we got on with you, the depth at wide receiver for the Canes is something that none of us expected. All of a sudden now, not only do they have a couple of receivers, no, they've got depth now. So there's a real balance right now in the running game and in the passing game for Miami, and Carson looks comfortable. So what are you expecting the Gators defense to do against them?
Yeah, what's interesting about Florida's defense is, they still really haven't gotten many turnovers, and they haven't gotten to the quarterback as much as maybe they should. Now, Caleb Banks, obviously, he's back out. That's been a little bit of a blow in that regard because he was that big defensive tackle, projected first-round pick that could get a push, and re-injured his foot. It doesn't look good for him for the rest of the season. I believe he's having a procedure on that foot. I mean, maybe if Florida's lucky, he could come back in November. But that hurts a little bit as far as the defensive front. Miles Graham, Ernest Graham's son, is playing very well at linebacker. The linebackers, Jaden Robinson, a kid from up here in Lake City, playing very well. In the secondary, Cormani McLean, a name that Miami fans know pretty well, right?
Yes.
He's finally got his head on straight. I mean, he's actually playing pretty well, and he's gained some weight. He's up to about 180, 190 now, so he's more physical. Devin Moore, Dijon Johnson from Tampa, he had his first pick of his career last week. So I think they've got pretty good corners, and Bryce Thornton and Jordan Castell in the safety, they're pretty decent there, and Sharif Denson and Aaron Gates at kind of the star position, that up position in the secondary, are also playing pretty well. So I think they've got some really good pieces on defense to possibly slow Miami. I think it's just going to be the question of can the offense certainly pick up its end of the bargain.
Yeah, I like that matchup for Miami. Their defense against the Gators offense. I haven't been impressed so far with the Gators offense, but I think the real challenge, the real battle on Saturday will be that Gators defense against the UM offense. If the UM offense is able to move the ball, then I think it's going to be obviously a really long night, for the Gators. I think if the Gators defense can't come up with turnovers or really get to Carson Beck or anything like that. In other words, I think the Gators defense has to be the difference maker in the matchup on Saturday night if they're going to make this a game or even win it, because I think Miami will control this game overall. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no question. I think Florida's been pretty good against the run too, but Fletcher is a guy that obviously is a problem, and so is the transfer Teron Brown. So it's going to be interesting.
By the way, Fletcher's an NFL back.
Yeah.
That's an NFL back, bro.
And they're going to have to, like I said, the defensive tackle a little thin. Another guy, Mekhi Barrow, 355-pound guy. He didn't play against LSU. He's probably questionable for this week. So they are a little thin there in kind of the interior of the defense. But Tyreek Sapp on the edge, I mean, he's going to be an interesting guy, and you can move him inside. And he's someone that obviously has a lot of motivation. Fort Lauderdale St. Thomas Aquinas kid, played under Jason Taylor, who was one of his mentors. So I think he's going to come in pretty juiced up in this matchup. But yeah, I think you got to just kind of, if you're Florida, stop the run first, try to make, Miami one-dimensional, and hope that, Carson Beck has an off day and maybe misfires. I mean, I think that's kind of the recipe for the Miami defense. Get the ball back to the offense, and you just hope that the offense can kind of figure things out in week 4. They haven't so far.
Kevin, you're a Miami guy, so do you think they? I know you keep up and watch the U and all that. So do you? Man, I actually think they're finally turning the corner after 20-something years. I actually think they've figured it out. I think they're headed in the right direction finally.
I was interesting because I had Manny Navarro on our podcast, and we were kind of talking about that. And I do think, like, for Miami, what I've seen the last few years under Mario is getting up for the big games, right? But always stumbling against some middling ACC team that they're more talented than, like a Georgia Tech or a Syracuse. Like, that's got to stop. I mean, I think that's like the next step for Miami. You just got to approach every week.
Well, that happened the last 2 weeks.
Like
the last 2 weeks, you treated Bethune-Cookman like you're supposed to, and then South Florida came in as a ranked team, and the Brown kid is a difference maker, and you did not take them lightly, and you handed them, the loss, and you dominated them. I'm actually seeing maturity even against the lesser teams now.
Yeah. I just wonder, if 20 years ago, if they didn't join the ACC, how different the program would be, because I don't know. I just think it's kind of a big albatross around their neck. People aren't getting up for a Miami, Virginia game in November, and it's just like I said, it's going to be interesting to see the future of Miami, if they have this successful run, how they parlay that in the future, because I think it's done them more harm than good over the last 20 years. Being in that conference. That's just my personal opinion.
Oh, yeah, for football, for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt. Now, here's the thing.
It's elevated basketball, though. I will say that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, here's the thing. Over the last 20 years, they've been so bad that if they get back to being good again, which is, I think, it's going to be so refreshing that I think the bandwagon is going to be loaded even on those kind of games too. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I really do. Once they get spoiled and they're constantly good, then I can see them slacking off on those kind of games where they don't get as excited because they're, boy, we're going to handle them, that kind of stuff, because that's how it used to be. You know what I'm saying? So, but in this case, I would not be surprised if early on they start getting on the bandwagon right now, because it's so fresh for an entire generation. Think about it. For an entire generation, this is fresh for them. They don't know anything else.
Mario, obviously I went to school with him, so, I know him well, and I've followed his career from, way back when he was starting at FIU, and obviously, had that education under Nick Saban at Alabama, and then went to Oregon and so forth. And he's built it on the line of scrimmage, and that's the way you're supposed to build it. And that's how, it was built at Miami back in the day. A lot of people, they think of Michael Irvin, but they forget guys like Cortez Kennedy. They forget guys like Russell
Jerome Brown, Warren Sapp, Jimmy Jones.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you build it down here. You build it through the line of scrimmage, and then you get the skill position guys later. And that's what Mario's done, and that's why I think they're in the position where they're in, where they could really have a big season.
Somebody tell the Dolphins that. And maybe they'll figure that out too. All right. What's the prediction, my brother? What'd you put in the Gainesville Center? Or maybe you haven't yet. Maybe you got to do it tomorrow. What's the prediction?
No, I've already got in there. 28-17 Miami over Florida. I think Florida's defense will come in and play a game. They play hard under Billy Napier. He's obviously under the gun here. It's not looking well, and it's not looking like he's going to last the season. Of course, last year, you were saying the same things in September, but This is year 4, and I think there's even more pressure on him to perform. And they do play hard for him, but I think it's just more the X's and O's and the sideline management, things of that nature, where he's just not the guy on Saturdays. I think that's kind of been the big problem here, is that he just, there's always something that, and you would think that he would have been able to recruit enough talent in year 4 to maybe overcome that and not have that margin for error, but that hasn't been the case either.
Is his name Billy McDaniel or Napier?
Billy Napier.
Okay. All right. No, because there's a guy named McDaniel here, and God, I swear that was like exactly what's going on with McDaniel too at the same time. Wow, that's amazing. All right, follow him on Twitter at Brockway G1, Kevin Brockway G1, and catch his work there at the Gainesville Sun. Kevin, thank you for taking the time as always, man. I appreciate you big time. Enjoy the weekend, my friend, and we'll catch up down the line.
Big O, always a pleasure, and good luck on that Dolphins pregame show tonight. Thank
you, my friend. Appreciate you. Take it easy. There you go. Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun. He covers the Gators athletics.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.